There comes a time in every soul's journey when applause dies down, when the lights dim and the world turns its face away. You speak, but no one listens. You try, but no one notices. And in those long, silent moments, a truth begins to whisper through the shadows. Nobody cares. Not out of cruelty, not always out of malice, but because everyone is drowning in their own battles. Everyone is carrying the weight of unseen wars, fighting ghosts no one else can see. So no, they don't care that you're tired, that you're lost, that you're aching inside. And maybe, just maybe, that's the most liberating truth you'll ever know. Because once you realize no one is coming to save you, you stop waiting, you stop begging, you stop hoping someone else will carry your cross. And in that moment, when you're left alone with nothing but your breath and your heartbeat, a fire lights within you, a quiet, steady flame that says, if nobody cares, I will. There's a certain strength that blooms in solitude, a raw, unfiltered power that only reveals itself when you've been abandoned by the world. You stop living for validation. You stop bending your spine to fit their frames. You stop screaming just to be heard, and instead, start building a life so loud in purpose that it no longer needs an audience. Because they don't care that you're struggling. They don't care that you stayed up all night trying to figure it out. They don't see the tears you cry in the bathroom at 2 a.m. But that's okay. You were never meant to be seen in your becoming. Caterpillars dissolve into nothing before they can become butterflies. No one claps for the chrysalis. So don't look for hands to hold. Don't seek a savior. Become one. When the world forgets you, remember yourself. When no one believes in your dream, dig your heels into the dirt and believe anyway. When they mock you, stay silent. Let your work thunder where your voice once trembled. Because in the end, the ones who rise are not the ones who are loved the most, but the ones who kept going when love disappeared. Let pain be your sculptor. Let loneliness be your teacher. Let rejection chisel your soul into something so sharp, so unshakable, that the winds of indifference can no longer move you. You are not weak because you're alone. You are not broken because they left. You are just now beginning. This is the birthplace of greatness. The wilderness, the wasteland, the exile. Here, where no one claps. Here, where no one sees. Here, where no one cares. This is where legends are forged. So rise, even when no one is watching. Rise, especially when no one is watching. Because every step you take in silence will one day echo through eternity. Every tear you wipe in solitude becomes a seed of strength they'll one day marvel at. You don't need their eyes. You need your own. You don't need their cheers. You need your why. Discipline will become your new devotion. Routine your temple. Solitude your sanctuary. You'll begin to build in the quiet what they'll praise in the noise. But by then you won't need their praise. You'll have become something greater than applause can define. You'll have become whole. And maybe one day they'll look back and say, how did you do it? And you'll smile, not with pride, but with peace. Because you'll know that while they waited for comfort, you chose to climb. While they wanted rescue, you became the storm. While they wished for someone to care, you cared enough for yourself to become more. The truth is harsh. Nobody cares. But you should. You must. Because if you don't, your dreams will rot in the graveyard of self-pity. Your purpose will drown in the shallow waters of other people's opinions. And you, this incredible divine creation, will vanish in the crowd of almost and maybes. So stop explaining. Stop seeking approval. Stop posting your pain, hoping for a like. The world is not your healer. You are. Take your scars, your silence, your solitude, and build something sacred. Forge your legacy in the furnace of your own faith. Turn your heartbreak into hammer strikes. Shape yourself with every unanswered prayer. And when it's all said and done, you won't need a statue or a trophy or a standing ovation, because you'll be the proof. You'll stand there quiet and unshakable, and everything about you will say, I made it, not because they believed in me, not because they cared, but because I did. They told you that loneliness is a curse, that silence is a punishment, that if you're alone, something must be wrong. But they never told you the truth, that solitude is a sanctuary, that in the stillness, away from the noise, away from the hands that drop you when you need them most. Something sacred awakens. You're not broken because you're walking alone. You're becoming. There's a quiet kind of power that only grows when no one else is watching. In the hush of isolation, the soul begins to speak. And what it says is not loud, but it is honest. It whispers truths you've buried beneath distractions and noise, truths too raw to hear when surrounded by crowds. You begin to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. And yes, at first, being alone feels like falling. It feels like the air has been sucked out of your lungs, like you've been left behind. But slowly, the fall becomes flight. Slowly, the silence becomes music. And one day, you stop looking around for someone to fill the emptiness. And you start filling it yourself, not with noise, not with people, not with temporary affection, but with something deeper, something divine. When you're alone, you are finally uncloaked. No performances, no pleasing, no pretending. Just you. And that's where the healing begins. Because the person you keep running from, the one hidden beneath the roles and the masks, that person is your beginning. Your home. Do not fear the empty room. Do not fear the nights without text messages, without invites, without someone to tell you you're enough. Because in those nights, in the hollow places, you'll find the only voice that truly matters, your own. Alone is not absence. Alone is presence. Alone is the space where your spirit can breathe, where your soul can stretch without apology, where your dreams can speak without being laughed at. Most people run from solitude because they're terrified of what they might find there. They've buried themselves so deep in others that to be alone feels like death. But the ones who face it, the ones who walk through the valley with no hand to hold, emerge as warriors, not hardened, but awakened. You see, there are things a crowd can never give you. The crowd can't teach you who you are. It can't give you peace. It can't build your strength. It can only distract you from your becoming. So don't be afraid when people leave. Don't be afraid when your phone goes silent. Don't be afraid when the invitations stop coming. That's not rejection. That's refinement. That's life pulling you inward so you can find the parts of yourself you've ignored for far too long. There's gold in the alone time. There's revelation in the stillness. There's a divine light that only shines when all others have gone out. And once you've sat with yourself long enough to hear your own heartbeat, to make peace with your own past, to forgive yourself for everything they wouldn't let you forget, then and only then are you ready to re-enter the world. Not as someone desperate to be seen, but as someone who sees themselves. Don't be afraid to be alone. Be afraid of a life where you never meet your true self. Be afraid of being surrounded by people and still feeling hollow. Be afraid of noise that drowns your calling. Be afraid of a life lived only for others, while your own light fades quietly into nothing. You were not made to be everything to everyone. You were made to be whole, even in silence. Let the empty spaces teach you. Let the silence stretch you. Let solitude become your sacred ground. Because one day, when the world comes rushing back, when they ask how you became this calm, this grounded, this clear, you will smile and say, I stopped running for myself. I learned to sit in the silence. I met the person I had forgotten I was. And I realized that being alone was the most beautiful gift I had ever been given. There's a bitter truth we're not taught, but life eventually forces it into our hands. People don't always respect kindness. They respect power. You can be gentle, selfless, endlessly giving, and still be overlooked, dismissed, taken for granted. Why? Because in this world, softness without strength is seen as weakness, and weakness invites exploitation. But don't misunderstand, power isn't cruelty. Power isn't arrogance. Real power is quiet. It doesn't shout, it doesn't beg, it doesn't need validation. Real power is presence, a kind of rooted stillness that says, I know who I am, and I don't need you to approve. When you have no power, your words fall flat. Your value gets ignored. Your heart gets broken by people who only understand control. But once you rise, once you find your inner strength, your boundaries, your fire, the world responds differently. Suddenly, people listen when you speak. They reconsider before they cross you. They see what they once overlooked. It's not about becoming feared. It's about becoming undeniable. Because when you carry yourself like someone who doesn't need anyone, the world starts offering you everything. Not because it's generous, but because power draws respect the way light draws attention. Not the loud, performative kind, but the quiet, grounded kind. The kind that doesn't need to chase. Power begins the moment you stop begging for love. It begins the moment you stop over-explaining your worth. The moment you stop shrinking to make others comfortable. When you finally decide that your peace, your dignity, your time are not up for compromise. Too many suffer under the illusion that being good is enough. But goodness without boundaries is a recipe for suffering. It leaves you wide open to those who only take, those who confuse silence with consent, those who don't hear your no unless it's backed by strength. So what does real power look like? It's walking away when you're not respected. It's saying no and not explaining why. It's standing in your truth, even if you stand alone. It's letting someone leave rather than lowering your standards. It's choosing solitude over disrespect, peace over popularity, self-respect over temporary affection. And when you begin to live like this, everything changes. Not because the world suddenly becomes kind, but because you stop tolerating what wounds you. You stop giving discounts to people who only show up to take. The shift is internal. A sacred decision that says, I will no longer abandon myself to keep others comfortable. And when you carry that energy, when your spirit no longer needs to be seen, liked, or validated, people feel it. Some will be drawn to it. Others will be intimidated. But all of them will know this is someone who cannot be played with. So don't let the world shame you into being small. Don't let it tell you that power and goodness can't coexist. The strongest people are the ones who love deeply and walk away when that love is disrespected, who give second chances but not third, who forgive but never forget the lesson. Because yes, people only respect power. So let your peace be power. Let your boundaries be power. Let your refusal to chase, to beg, to break for others be your quiet crown. And when they come back, surprised by the version of you that no longer bends, smile gently, not with pride, not with anger, but with peace. Because the version of you that used to suffer, that version is gone, buried in the ashes of every time they underestimated you. What stands now is power wrapped in grace, and they will respect it, whether they understand it or not. It's strange, isn't it? The way people suddenly remember your worth after you've left. How your silence says what your presence never could. How your absence screams in rooms your voice once filled quietly. You were always there, giving, patient, understanding, overlooking small cuts, brushing off the coldness, hoping, just hoping, they'd see, but they didn't. Not because you weren't enough, but because you were always available. And what is always available is taken for granted. That's the tragedy of the human heart. We don't recognize the warmth until the room turns cold. We don't value the consistent ones, the forgiving ones, the quiet caretakers, until their footsteps vanish from our lives. It's not your fault. You did everything right. You loved the best way you knew how. But in a world that addicted to drama, to ego, to performance, gentleness is mistaken for weakness, and presence becomes background noise. Until it's gone, that's when they notice, when the texts go unanswered, when your energy no longer fills the room, when your laughter fades in their memory, and all that remains is silence, the echo of what they lost. Suddenly, you're valuable, not because you changed, but because you left, because your absence forced them to sit with themselves, to see the reflection they ignored while you were standing there, shielding them from their own emptiness. Now that you're gone, they meet the silence, and it doesn't lie. Now they remember your patience, your warmth, the small things you did without being asked, the steady love you offered while they wandered. But don't confuse their regret with love. Some people don't miss you because they loved you. They missed the way you made them feel, the safety, the comfort, the validation, the reflection of themselves they liked when they stood beside you. But where were they when you needed to be held? Where were they when your heart grew tired? You were not a moment. You were a miracle, but they were too distracted to see. And that's the way it goes. Sometimes your leaving is the loudest thing you'll ever say. You don't need to fight to be seen anymore. You don't need to prove your worth or beg to be chosen. The people who are meant for you will know, not just when you're gone, but while you're still here. They won't wait for silence to hear your value. They'll cherish you in the noise. So, if you're in the middle of letting go, keep going. Walk with grace, not bitterness. They may only love you now that you're gone, but your journey isn't backward. You don't need their apology to heal. You don't need to return to be remembered. The past can keep its ghosts. You are not their home anymore. You are light walking forward. And those who see you now, who really see you, will never wait until you're gone to love you. So let them remember you in the quiet. Let them feel the weight of what they lost. Not out of spite, but because your absence was the truth they refused to face. You gave your love with purity. You showed up with your whole heart. And now you've stepped away, not to punish, but to protect your soul. This is your healing. This is your return to self. And the right ones, the rare ones, they won't wait for your silence to hear your worth. They'll listen while you speak. They'll see you while you're still here. You're not gone. You've just gone back to where you're valued. And that is where you belong. Thank you for sharing this moment with me. Take care of your heart. Honor your presence. And remember, your worth doesn't begin when you're gone. It lives in you right now. Until next time, stay true, stay grounded, and as always, may peace be upon your path. Goodbye for now.